Hey everyone, welcome to the Chester County Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Dominski, and this is the show that gives you all the information you need to make your next sale a great one. And on this episode, we're with David Graham, Business Development Specialist with Rapid Mortgage, and we're going to talk a little bit about the industry of buying homes, a little of his history, and some of the things that he's learned along the way to help home buyers have the most successful sale as possible. So, David, thanks for joining us, man.
Good afternoon. How are you, Sean?
Good. I hope that my falling mic here didn't mess us up or anything.
No way.
So as we were saying, you're the business development specialist at Rapid Mortgage. So real quick, just a little bit about Rapid Mortgage, how long you guys have been around, and what kind of stuff that you guys do.
Well, I will say this: I got into this business 16 years ago, and we have been in the same office near Longwood Gardens the whole time, and we've been a few different names, a few different banks, which is pretty normal in our business. Rapid Mortgage we've got on about 4 years ago, and it's the best company we've ever worked for since we've been in this business.
So it's an office that will work with various different banks and lenders and companies and stuff like that. What are some of the differences between them, and what makes Rapid different from some of the ones that you've worked with before?
What I find about Rapid, the size of the company. We've been with other companies that were a top 20 lender nationally out of California. Now, you think that sounds great on paper. What that means is, though, you don't have a dedicated staff. You don't have your answers when you need them as quickly. We are a medium-sized company headquartered in Ohio, so we only have kind of our concentration on a certain level that allows us to laser focus what we need for our clients, and that includes fast closings, like the name says, rapid. We can go really, really fast, 10 to 14 days if needed, as long as everything cooperates in the process. The other thing is we have a question for the owners. They're actively in the business as well, and we have a direct line to them. So I think that's where the benefit of our company is now, as opposed to other companies we've worked for.
Now, I know you can't give any names, but any examples or so of a horror story, whether it's within your office or another office that you've seen from a company or a lender that just kind of made you cringe a little bit? I'm curious at what does a bad experience look like?
So one of the things I think about is when somebody says, if somebody's in the closing department and there's a closing going on and there's it's getting a little hairy, and their email comes back and says they're at lunch. and everyone at the closing table is looking at you like, what do you mean they're at lunch?
Yeah,
there's something going on right now.
I laugh because I've been in that situation, and you're literally sitting at the table with everyone, and if it's kind of not a happy deal, our seller was going through a divorce and stuff, and it was just this awkward period, and then the title agent comes back and she's like, they're at lunch. And you're like, what?
Nobody wants to hear that at the closing table,
right.
So there was one particular company that I joke at with Len in my office, and I say I used to wear a bulletproof vest to go to closings, and it was not fun. It was not good. And so where we are now is stronger and better than ever, and I'm so happy about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's really cool. And I think, for as long as I've known you, there's been a couple different companies, but definitely my experience with Rapid has been very good too.
Great.
So, so real quick, how long have you been in the mortgage industry in general, or the real estate industry? Because I know a lot of people go back and
all
forth.
In one. 18 years ago, we moved here from California, and a friend of mine from college did our mortgage. And it was during the heyday before the crash in 2008. So I'm like, this seems like a great business. I was already in sales. I didn't want to be a real estate agent per se, so I got into the mortgage side. And then, of course, the whole thing crashed in 2008. But it allowed me the time to, grow into my business and, do the things, the fundamentals of the business.
Yeah, I always tell people that if they don't understand what happened in 2008, watch The Big Short.
That was the greatest movie.
Oh my gosh.
Ever.
And it was so entertaining, and it hit the big points that just kind of put it into context and the feeling that was going on. Now, it's exaggerated because in my experience, because I got into real estate right before the crash when things weren't doing, they were looking bad.
Yeah.
but just kind of give people that idea, and especially some of the younger buyers now. Like there was this whole mindset when they, when someone says like, "Oh, buy real estate, they ain't making more of it." You're like, "Well, I mean, yes, but that mindset got us in trouble for a little bit."
Yeah.
But there was just this like too big to fail feeling about the whole industry. And when you see these, like they caricaturize it. You had the scene with the stripper who was like, you're like, she's like, "Oh, like, how much is your mortgage?" Like, "Oh, which one? How many do you have?" well, 9. And it's and that was the attitude at the time.
Sure.
And then like after the crash, the whole industry was just so. I don't want to say like depressed.
It was
but
demonized also.
Yeah. People didn't like.
No way.
I mean, I didn't like real. I was in real estate, and I didn't like real estate agents. I was mad at I was mad at the brokers, the banks, agents. I was mad at the real estate association for not protecting consumers more. So it was a very gloomy time, and we were a lot of uncertainty. People were very slow to pull the trigger. Now, when I was just telling a younger guy about my first purchase, which I think was probably like 2010 era, and he's like, "What? You got what for how much?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm kind of old, man." So as we moved into that market, what were some of the things that you found really worked that kept you from going and taking a job as a bank teller, like a lot of these guys?
Well, believe me, I would do anything to stay in the business. So I did wind up going back into the restaurant bar business for a certain amount of time, which to this day has also yielded me a lot of business going, since then. So what the biggest thing is networking. I got into BNI, which is the weekly networking organization. I built up a new chapter to over 50 members in Westchester, and now I'm currently with PRE, which you're very aware of, Professional Referral Exchange. So that was like a base point for every week I get together with other professionals and we work on referrals.
And I was in the fortunate position to actually watch you build, take a chapter that contracted down, take it over at. There was a point where I think there was 4 members.
Yes, and we were meeting at Wegmans, and I said to you all, I said, "Listen, guys, I'm going to be here every Wednesday. If you're here with me, great. If not, it's all good." And we made it through, and now we're over 20 members.
And I think it's I don't from what I've heard, because I have a lot of friends in the chapter. It's like the one of the stronger chapters in the area.
It is. Oh, even through COVID, we were adding people, and we also offer a Zoom and in-person option.
Yeah. So what is it about networking that has made you so committed to it, especially through the harder points?
Well, the alternative to networking is completely only doing cold calling and walking into places that you do not know who you're talking to. So for me as a mortgage person, going into a real estate office and just asking these realtors to do business with us, whereas in my network, I can ask my network to introduce me warmly to other people they know, whether it be realtors, divorce attorneys, anyone else that can help bring us business, and we can help bring them business.
Yeah. And we were talking a little bit about the how when you're working with someone that's already in your network that you're already connected with, as opposed to, I mean, you've worked really well with people you've never met before, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
But as far as the buyer goes, have you noticed a better experience for them when you're working with the people that you know, like, and trust, and it's basically within your network?
Yeah, 100%. Especially in something like real estate, it's a team sport.
Yeah.
So when you get that agreement of sale in, you have 2 realtors involved, 1 mortgage company, a title company, an inspector. Well, usually, not the last 2 years, but then we have
at least one inspector, but you could also have several inspectors.
Several, exactly. So many moving parts.
The appraiser, big deal.
The appraiser as well. So, but I think the synergy between the mortgage and the realtor, the buyer's realtor, is so important to make them feel like we're all on the same team. Right. And it certainly can happen when I don't know the realtor and we just meet through this process. But if I can work with somebody I know and trust myself, it's going to make everything go better. And I think the main winners of that are the clients at the end, when they grab their keys and it's celebration and they felt that we were a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, in my experience, like, I always have to kind of put it out there that when you're a buyer, you can choose the vendors that you're working with. Like that's the buyer's choice. And when you're talking to a mortgage person or a realtor, they're recommendations. However, I found it's always good to at least consider those recommendations because the experience it's going to follow through. And sometimes it's when things aren't going so well. One thing I've experienced was when I remember one story in particular when I was working with a buyer and they had their own mortgage person. They already had them. They already went through everything and they wanted to work with them. However, it was someone located, I think, in Ohio. They found through like Quicken or Rocket or one of those things. Probably the worst experience we ever had. And there was a point where there was like a week or so where we were just being completely ghosted by this guy. And he wasn't responding to emails or phone calls. I don't know if he had other stuff that took priority. I can't remember if he went on vacation or something like that. And that was the time when I was like, when I'm talking to a buyer or a seller, I'll make recommendations letting them know they ultimately get to choose. But when you're working with someone that you're referring, when they're working with someone who's been referred to them, they're not being treated like a one-off deal. They're being treated like every deal that person's going to refer in the future. So it really increases the amount of basically not quite buying power, but just that advocacy. Because if I'm if I'm referring them to a lender, and that lender does a bad job, that lender's worried that I'm not going to refer who knows how many deals in the future. And when you're in the networking situation, you're kind of like the things that you do is you're planting these seeds and working with people as if even with the other vendors and stuff, as if they're going to be a source of referrals. You're looking for that lifelong relationship.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, and the other thing is this: transactions versus lifelong support.
Yeah.
So yes, there's a transaction involved. We get to the closing table, and then there's a little bit of an ending there. But it's the way we stay in touch with people after that too. Whether it be in emails a few times here and there, a phone call, social media, just letting people know we are here. Our phone number is the same as it was throughout the process. We can, let us know if you have any questions. That also goes far with our realtor partners because they're the ones who bring us a lot of business. And if they know that we have their back and we have their clients, that's going to make everything much smoother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk real quick. So there's different types of connections. So you have a primary connection in your network, but then you have these secondary connections too. And that's when someone in your network's referring to you to someone in their network. And that's kind of what we're talking about here because you have buyers who are like, I already have a realtor. Sorry, man, this microphone is killing me. I need to figure out what's going on.
Why is mine perfect and yours isn't?
I think
you need to change them.
I need to give you the crappy one. No, I think I must be because I mess with it a lot.
Okay.
But
yeah,
I can't figure it out. Anyway, sorry everyone. So like that primary referral is like when you're working with someone and they're like, hey, I want you to be my mortgage person. I already have an agent. I want them to be my agent.
Yes.
And you've done that probably 100
many times. Yeah, it's a little scary sometimes, and sometimes it works out really well too.
And so that would be like a direct primary, like a first level connection?
Yes.
Because they have both providers in their network. Most likely, they don't also have a home inspector, a radon inspector, a pest inspector, they wouldn't need the appraiser, but title company,
insurance company. Exactly.
However, when they go to you and you go to your network, or even if you have to go to your network's network, so like they need something very specific, like a real estate lawyer that you may or may not, for a
if I don't have them in my network,
if you have a large enough network, you have someone, you can go to your agents and be like, hey, who knows how to do this very specific thing when it comes to real estate law or something like that. And most likely there's someone in there that can help you out with it.
Yes. Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, the thing is, the real estate trainer, Brian Buffini, uses the term hub of your database. So what we want is when the closing's over, we want our people to come to us and say, Dave, I need a good attorney. Dave, I need a good CPA, whatever it may be. And then we would like to connect them to people that we trust. Because we do have everyone's best interest in mind, and it becomes a win-win-win all the way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what else would you recommend that buyers that people consider when they're buying a house from your experience?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, like we've already talked about, is the team they want to work with, okay? And if I'm somebody right now who's renting, and I say, I have no idea what I can afford, I have no idea when we want to move or buy a home, I would say contact a trusted mortgage person.
Right.
Let them run something for you. Similar to, like, if you don't know what your health is, you got to start by going to the doctor. Let them do whatever they're going to do. So that's the same thing with a mortgage professional. They'll start a file for them. They will do a report for them. They will show them, here's where it stands now. If you were to buy a home today, if there are a few things we need to work on, we'll put a plan together, and then it's up to them to do it, and we would check in. There's a lot of realtors right now that we're heading into the end of the year. So some people are saying we're going to wait till the holidays are over. We're going to do it next year. And if most realtors now are saying, listen, I want you to speak to a trusted mortgage person that we know just to see where you stand. Because if they wait until April to run something, we could have helped them over the last 4 months before then, we got to do it. You have to know now. The sooner the better.
Well, especially too if they're not actively working on their credit, and they know what their credit score is and if it's accurate. Because I mean, going on credit, we've had Ramsey on the show before.
Yes.
So just jumping on Credit Karma is not going to give you an idea of whether or not you can buy a house.
A mortgage report is different than any other report, so you have to get it from a mortgage company. It's going to have a different scoring system, and it's going to look at things a little differently. So I think, again, when you go to a mortgage company, usually that's going to be no money out of your pocket, no obligation, but you know where you stand. So I think, getting back to your first question about where would they begin, I would say between that and then also a real estate agent. So the real estate agent now knows what they would be looking for and when, and then they can start thinking about, what's going to come up where and what the timing is. So get your team in place.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, an agent's not going to admit this, but the first thing that they're going to say, if you're a first-time home buyer, you're early in the process, or it's going to be a little while, they're going to be like, let me put you in touch with a mortgage lender for that reason.
Definitely. Yeah.
And really because that's what it's all going to come down to. An agent's going to help you find a house.
Yes.
But you got to start focusing on what you want, what you need, what you can get, what you can qualify for too.
That's right. So all great points. And one of the things that it really struck me, we were at a meeting yesterday with a realtor who we've done a little bit of work with. And I thought of it in these terms, right? Rapid Mortgage can get a deal done in 2 to 3 weeks, which is really fast. But we also have the patience to wait 2 or 3 years. So we have the best of all worlds. So we can run something today, and we can be with them, with those people, for whenever they're ready.
Well, and that's the one thing we've heard. I mean, you've shared stories with me where you're like, hey, I could just close the deal with a buyer I met 6 years ago.
Yes,
kept in touch, and then we sold him a house.
We do home buyer happy hours with various different realtors. So we'll just go to and have a happy hour, a couple of drinks, some food. And one in particular came 5 years later. They wound up buying their first home. It was like, and the whole time, every year, he might contact me twice a year with questions that we can guide them with.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So see, that's where I think that the well-informed buyer with a great support team behind them are the ones that are going to thrive in this market, because we're still in a low inventory environment, and that's not going away.
Right. That's awesome. So, all right. So if someone's interested in this, what's the best way that someone can get in touch with you?
The best way would be the business card in front of you. Do you want me to give my cell phone? Or
Yeah, I guess your cell phone would be the best way.
484-643-3400. Call or text 24 hours a day. And then my email address, D like David, Graham like the cracker, Graham, at email, EMAIL, R like rapid, M like mortgage, C like company.com.
Awesome. Cool. Well,
excellent, sir.
Thanks a lot, man.
Good to see you, man. Yep.
Thanks for listening. This has been the Chester County Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by RE/MAX Ace Realty. serving buyers and sellers in the Chester County area. Subscribe for new episodes at acerealtypa.com/podcast. And you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever podcasts are found.
This episode is brought to you by RE/MAX Ace Realty in Downingtown, PA. Whether you're looking to buy or sell a home, we have a real estate expert for you. Search for homes or contact an agent at acerealtypa.com.